Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I'm your host for today and every other day, the Articulate Thinker. Hopefully, here to bring you art articles and articulations straight from Articulation Station. So be sure to like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. Don't forget to turn on those bell notifications while you're at it. If you like it, put a ring on it. Sharing is caring. All that other good stuff. But enough about me. Oh, let's see. This is one of 5 individuals, or shall I say, illegal migrants, who got arrested for beating up cops only to get released without bail. Welcome to the United States of America. This is what he thinks about us. Now, this has made the headlines over the last 24 hours, give or take a few. And I believe a couple more individuals, or shall I say illegal migrants, though I'm not sure about all of them. As far as I know, all of them are indeed illegal migrants. But I'm just saying, I'm not really going to be covering this. I intend to cover it in a separate show, separate podcast or pod. Depends on how long it goes. Depends on how long this goes. Feel free to disagree with me. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know, as always. But I'm going to go on with this. Yeah. Sad to see. Sad to say. What else do I have for you here? Okay, a few headlines. I'm going to pull them up. Breeze through them real quick. See which way the wind is blowing. All right, here we go. This from the Wall Street Journal. Headline reads, Border Bill nears finish line after months of talks, but can it pass? Top Democrats and Republicans iron out final details amid GOP skepticism. That's right. House GOP passed bill months ago, H.R. 2. But because they're Republicans and Democrats have the majority in the Senate, it was a no-go. Dead on arrival. Didn't even really arrive. Joe Biden was going to veto it, even if it did make its way through the Senate, but of course it did not. However, now the Senate is putting together a bill, so they say, one which Joe Biden is apparently more than willing to pass, or at least he says he is. Could just be playing pretend because he doesn't think the Republicans in the House, who have the majority in the House, will bite on it. But essentially, we have a bill in the House, which Democrats in the Senate may not want to pass. Well, do not want to pass. Been there, did not do that. Meanwhile, yeah, there's a bill in the Senate, which the Republicans in the House may not want to pass. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is saying it's a no-go. So far, no good. Donald Trump is saying the same. And the two of them are tight, so they're going to put up quite a fight. But yes, on to the next headline. This one from Reuters. U.S. Senate nears release of bipartisan border deal Trump rejects. Not that Trump has much of a say, except for the fact that he is the, well, soon-to-be nominee for the Republican Party. Assuming he's not prevented by legal means of some sort. But yes, Republicans in the House also seem to be rejecting it from the top down. As I already mentioned, Mike Johnson is not too fond of the idea of passing this. But nobody really knows what's in it because it has been bipartisan in the Senate, but in a very secretive way, so that no one knows exactly what there is to say about it. So is it preemptive to shoot it down? Is it preemptive to say it's a no-go? Or so-so? Possibly. But judging by the characteristics of the Biden administration and Democrats in the Senate, when it comes to things such as border security, can't really have high hopes on this one. I know they would like to take the border crisis and spin it last moment to use it to run on just before the election. And I'm not saying that the Republicans don't want the same thing. Shucks, there's probably some Republicans out there who deep down inside would like to keep the crisis a crisis until after elections so they can continue running against the open border policies of the Biden administration. But as the narrative changes, if indeed it is successfully changed as the Biden administration continuously attempts to change it and spin it, if you know what I mean, well, we'll just see if some of these Republicans open their hearts rather than their borders, as the Democrats have done. But yes, I don't for a moment believe that the Democrats actually want to secure the border. They've never wanted to. Why do you think we have such a problem in the first place? The numbers have gone up astronomically since Biden came into office, contrary to what some people claim. But yes, on to the next headline here. This one from CNN. Biden endorses emerging deal to give USA new power to clamp down on border crossings. So, if Trump is opposed to it without knowing what is in it, and Biden endorses it without knowing what is in it, well, wait a second. Maybe he knows what is in it, and he's just not telling us. That seems a little bit non-transparent, if you ask me. I guess they want to vote on it and pass it before anyone knows what's in it, like Nancy Pelosi said some number of years ago. We have to pass it so we can see what's inside it. I don't know. It just seems awfully secretive. There are two different theories on this, I suppose. One is that it is secretive because they don't want us to know what's inside it. And two is, well, they want it to be secretive, at least for the time being, because they are indeed working together on it. It is indeed bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats are chipping in alike, and they want to tune it up before they turn it out, if you know what I mean. They want to make sure they are in agreement to the extent where they are at least somewhat certain that the House, or at least the majority of the House, will agree that it's worth passing. But like I said, I don't have high hopes on this. I just don't. Color me skeptical when it comes to the intentions of any sitting member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, but especially Democrat when it comes to the very unsecure border, i.e. the border crisis. Here's a headline from ABC News. Without seeing all border deal details, Speaker Mike Johnson says it's a non-starter. All right, so Speaker Mike Johnson tells ABC News it's not enough to secure the border. How does he know, you might ask? And that is a good question. I would say that it is safe to assume that he is assuming. And I would say that it is safe to assume that there is a reason to assume as well. Because once again, Democrats who up until 5 minutes ago wouldn't even acknowledge that there's a crisis are now suddenly like, oh, there's a crisis, but it's Congress's fault. Let's do something about it. Vote Democrat. We care about the border. Whatever. Okay, another headline, this one from Associated Press. President Biden has said he'd shut the U.S.-Mexico border if given the ability. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that he has said the quiet part out loud. He has basically, despite the spins by his administration, notably Karine Jean-Pierre, so on and so forth, in the wake of him saying what he said, it's saying the quiet part out loud because his contention has been that he can't do anything else. He has literally been saying that he can't do anything else. He has said give him the power by voting this package through Congress, the border bill, which includes funding for foreign borders. Yeah, because they just had to lump that in. So maybe I'm wrong, and they actually do care about this particular border deal, but only because other borders are involved. It's not necessarily about our border. Other borders, foreign borders, are involved. They love to fund those. But I'm just saying, Joe Biden's contention is, I don't have the power to do anything. not anything else. I can't do anything. It's up to Congress. They're blocking it. They're blocking the progress. So they need to process this bill. They need to vote it through so I can sign off on it. And then and only then, Joe Biden says he could shut down the border. But wait, that's not necessarily what the border bill would even give you the ability to do. What you're essentially saying is that if you get your way on this, you'll just go ahead and take other executive actions, right? Nobody knows what he actually means when he says things because, let's face it, he's kind of falling apart. He's kind of decrepit. Not exactly the man with the plan here. He has been running away from the issue for the longest time. So, not exactly stepping up to the plate, ready to knock this thing out of the park. But, again, when he's saying, vote for what I want you to vote for, and then I'll shut down the border, he's basically admitting that he could just go ahead and shut down the border now. He could just take executive actions, which he's refusing to take now. That's what he's referring to, intentionally or unintentionally, when he speaks of shutting down the border. Because the border bill's not going to do that. It's mostly going to give more funding, more resources for more processing. And in regards to that, I have a couple more headlines. Here's this one from NBC News. Bipartisan border deal would not allow 5,000 illegal crossings per day, despite what Trump says. Okay. Sources say. And it's not just Trump who said that the border bill would allow 5,000 illegal crossings per day. There's reporting for a lack of transparency on the actual details of the bill. People have speculated, sources have said, as they always do, and in some cases they've said, okay, so there's going to be a threshold. There's going to be a shutdown threshold. A certain number of illegal migrants will have to cross the border in order for it to be shut down temporarily on a 5,000 basis. That's one of the numbers that was being floated. So Trump ran with it, saying, that means it's a bad border bill. If there's a threshold like that on a daily basis or whatever, it's no good. And no bill would be better than a bad bill. And I can't necessarily agree. I can't necessarily disagree. Yeah, I can't necessarily disagree with him on that. Getting a little confused here. That's because it's all very confusing because nobody knows what's actually in the bill. What's become a popular talking point among conservative Republicans opposed to an emerging immigration bill is incorrect. Here's what it would do. Okay, so in the headline, you're not going to learn much. I get it. I'm going to have to scroll down and see what else you can find. But if I'm not mistaken, it's mostly been members of the Senate or other sources close to the Senate who have said, oh, that's inaccurate. That's incorrect. There's no 5,000 number, or if it is, it's being spun. Well, I don't know who's spinning what at this point. We'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. I don't want to say anything too definitive. I could be wrong in all of my skepticism, and the Democrats actually have a solution on the table here. I just doubt it. Just doubt it. Senate to vote next week on bipartisan border bill, Schumer says, according to The Guardian. Top Senate Democrat gives timetable for vote on border security bill tied to Ukraine aid as Trump urges lawmakers to reject deal. Now, I realize that these are just a bunch of headlines. I'm reading through and reacting to the headlines, nothing more. But I don't really want to focus on any of these particular articles. What I'm going to do is play this clip here. It is a clip, compilation of clips on my Articulate Thinker News Clips channel. Check out that channel if you haven't already done so. Like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride over there. I'm much more frequent over there in terms of uploading. But I'm going to play this video, and then I'm going to read through some comments. A comment in response to this, then my comment in response to the comment, and then a comment in response to one of my other compilations. then my response to that response, my comment in response to that comment in response to that compilation of clips, if that makes any sense. Yeah, here you go. Take from it what you may.
There is a real play. The world's changing, John. And we're going to be, the fact is, we're going to be very shortly a minority white European country.
Right.
And sometimes my colleagues don't speak enough to make it clear that that's not going to change how we operate. That's not going to change them.
Kill Whitey! No. Flashback.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop.
Notice who is over here to his side. Alejandro Mayorkas, the man whom House Representatives, Republican at least, are attempting to impeach currently. I think it's mostly just a publicity stunt. That's not always a bad thing. If it draws attention to the border, hey, I'm all for that. But at the same time, this impeachment isn't going anywhere fast. Because, once again, Republicans only have the majority in the House. It's going to be dead on arrival, or even before arrival, when it comes to the Senate. So, yeah, he's not actually getting impeached, unless, once again, I'm drastically and dramatically wrong. But, hey, we'll see what happens on that as well. It is interesting that all these years ago, Joe Biden was talking about this surge at the border, as he has sometimes said. He's talking about the changing of population demographics within this country. Let me let the rest of this play out.
Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America, from then and on, will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
It is my testimony that the border is secure.
We are operating within the constraints of a broken immigration system.
Uh-huh. The same Alejandro Mayorkas there. Secretary of Homeland Security. He's not all that much into security, though. Apparently. He does say the border is secure. He has said it time and time again. According to which standard exactly, I'm not sure. He has also said that the immigration system is broken. These are their two talking points. I've pointed it out time and time again. They say, oh, the border is secure. Or at least they have been saying that. They're not even really saying that now. They were running away from it for the longest time, pretending that the border was secure, that there was no crisis, but now that they feel that they are in a position to pivot, to spin it before the election in order to claim that they are the ones who have a solution for what is now suddenly a border crisis. And it's the Republicans, the evil, extreme MAGA Republicans, who are blocking the attempts to solve the problem, which wasn't considered a problem, or at least not a crisis 5 minutes ago. But, take it from him, Green Jean-Pierre, everyone in between. I've heard it time and time again. The border is secure. The system is broken. Because they want to blame Republicans while simultaneously claiming credit for, well, there not being a crisis, which there is. But yeah, that's that. And let me just say here, I don't interpret that as some acknowledgement of white replacement theory or something like that. In regards to what Joe Biden was saying. He was talking about, people who look like me getting overrun in one way or another. He's been talking about that for years. Not very often, but he has said it. Whether it's him saying the quiet part out loud or just him saying the loud part out loud. He was saying something that could easily be interpreted as white replacement theory. So, I get why people go there, but I'm not necessarily going there. To me, it's just indicative of a pathetic political philosophy when it comes to border security or lack thereof. Yeah. That's what you hear when you listen to that clip. I could play it one more time. case you weren't following along with what Joe Biden was saying there. I think it's important. So let me play the beginning of it again.
There is a real play. The world's changing, John.
There is a real play. And he stops himself. He says the world's changing.
And we're going to be, the fact is, we're going to be very shortly a minority white European country.
We're going to be very shortly a white European minority country. I'm reading the captions down here, the subtitles on the video, but they don't quite line up.
Right. And sometimes my colleagues don't speak enough to make it clear that that's not going to change how we operate. That's not going to change them.
Bit of a meme video, just so you know. Don't take that too seriously.
Flashback.
An unrelenting stream of immigration.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. In other words, a surge. Surge the border, he said later on in life. His very, very long life. So, here we are. Right here. This is what we're now dealing with. I'm just going to leave that up, and I'm going to read a comment, a very short comment, which was left in response to the little compilation of clips of Joe Biden, which I just showed you, of Joe Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas. And I'm going to read my response to that response. And then, yeah, one more set of responses after that. Then I'll wrap this up, call it quits. Looks like I'm at podcast length, past the pod length, over 20 minutes into this show, so just letting you know. If you want to watch it later for some odd reason, like if you're stalking me or something, it will be in my podcast playlist. Anyways, someone said, this started under Trump. More lies from Republicans. Enough with their BS. So, in other words, enough of my BS, since I put that little compilation of clips together. And according to the person whose name I will not mention, random person online, this started under Trump. You know what? Let me pause this for a second. Alright, I just wanted to pause long enough to pull up this post on X by Kang KOA the Great, who does quite a bit of research on various political topics. He says, watch, America's illegal immigration crisis is shattering century-old records with alarming numbers. If you don't believe me on the numbers and the unprecedented level of crisis here, well, here you go. 2023. 3,200,000. That's the number. Yeah, that is the number. Talking about illegal entries into the country. Of course. And you can find these numbers tallied in various ways on various sources. But I'm just saying, by this particular metric, just go from 2023 back to 2020. Keep in mind, in 2020, the pandemic was just hitting, so that changed things for a little bit. I say that because if I start in 2018, the number was 400,000 crossings. The number in 2019 was over 800,000 crossings. And then back to 2020, as I already mentioned, it was back down during the pandemic, the initial stages of the pandemic, back to 400,000. And maybe that had something to do with the Trump administration. They were much better at handling this particular issue than the Biden administration, but maybe it was because of the pandemic. Combination of those things, most likely. But 1 year later, 2021, once Biden took control of things, 1,900,000, we'll round up, 2 million is the number there. And then 2022, rounding up again, 3 million. And I feel comfortable rounding up because of all of the unknowns, the gotaways, the people who aren't really being tracked in the way that they should be. I mean, if there are that many who are known, what about the ones who are unknown? Okay, and then, finally, in 2023, just last year, it's weird to say, I know, although we're moving into February now, over 3 million. So it jumped year to year to year under the Biden administration. Go back to the Trump administration, and my apologies, these numbers are so small you can't really read them. Yeah. During the Trump administration, around 400 plus thousand. During the Biden administration, over 2 million. But is it fair to say that this started under Trump? Not really. Not really. Going all the way back to 2010, the numbers were pretty steady. Around 400 plus thousand per year on this particular metric. But yes, on President Biden's inaugural day, he introduced policies that incentivize illegal immigration. He paused deportations, suspended remain in Mexico, stopped border wall construction. And there's some more text here, which is all worth a read. We have quotes from Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton. Old quotes in which they assert that border security is very important. Of course, they later shifted their stances. They shifted their goalposts. And especially in the previous election cycles when Joe Biden was running on border security being xenophobic or even racist or whatever the talking point was, he couldn't exactly talk about keeping the border secure. Instead, he talked about surging the border. If you wanted to come, we'll absorb you all. That sort of thing. That's what he had to say. That's what he had to say until 5 minutes ago, when just the other day he was like, actually, if you do what I want you to do and pass this bill that I want you to pass so I can take credit for shutting down the border, well, I'll shut down the border. I don't know if I even see that happening. He could just be playing on the emotions of the Republicans. But here is an 11-minute long compilation of clips, speaking of compilations of clips, of Democrats, including the ones I just referenced, talking about the security of the border. These are all old clips. I'm not going to play it. I can link you up with this page if you want to watch it for yourself. 11-minute long video of high-up Democrats just a few years ago, give or take a few, talking about the importance of securing the border. Yeah. These times they are a-changing. So, again, I'll read that comment on my video. This started under Trump. More lies from Republicans. Enough with their BS. That's what this person was saying about me. So, my response is hopefully well thought out, and here it goes. Look at the influx of illegal entries into this country during the Trump administration versus during the Biden administration, as seen in the numbers which I just showed you. Look at the number of terror watch list apprehensions, known and unknown gotaways, migrant deaths, trafficking victims, cartel profits, fentanyl flow, number of crimes committed by illegal migrants who are released into the country, burden of resources going to put the illegal migrants first, as seen on the screen here, because this guy and the other guys who committed the crimes, which they're not doing time for, they are back out on the street, soaking up resources of the American citizens. Taxpayer dollars well spent, not. But yes, burden of resources going to put the illegal migrants first, so on and so forth. On every available metric, speaking of metrics, Biden has been an unmitigated disaster compared to Trump, whom I'm not even a fan of. And you're out of your ever-loving mind if you think otherwise. When Biden came into office, he took it upon himself to reverse every effective thing which Trump had managed to do. The White House's talking points about initiating immigration reform on day one are a bunch of propaganda, or as Joe Biden would say, malarkey. The Democrats even had the majority in the House at the time. Yet the border surge began and the numbers began to climb. The administration spent 2+ years pretending that there wasn't even a crisis before suddenly switching up their messaging just in time to try to blame Republicans and play the hero before the election, as well as in order to further fund the security of the border in foreign countries. Go figure. America first? I don't think so. I'm not saying that Republicans don't also politicize the issue, but Biden's surge the border campaign strategy clearly backfired, unless, of course, you're willing to assume that this was all by design, i.e., white replacement theory or something like that. I'm not going down that pathway. Know how the internet feels about that one. But yeah, something's going on. Listen, if you think I'm wrong, then try to convince me that all of these illegals would be more likely to vote red than blue if they had the right to vote. You know, if it's Trump's doing, then guys like this should be a fan of Trump, a fan of Republicans, which is an absolutely nonsensical notion. Doesn't make a lick of sense. But people don't give a lick about common sense these days, apparently, so there's that sad fact. But in regards to illegals having the right to vote, give it time. In the meantime, sending more resources down to the border in order to process even more migrants will only further exacerbate the problem. And if you want to tell me that the Democrats are actually prepared to focus on securing the border for once, with an actual plan to close the border rather than simply claiming it's not open as millions of migrants flood across it from all corners of the earth, well, I'll believe the legislation and or executive order when I see it. Yeah. Okay, and moving on to my last set of comments here. And this is in response to a different video which I uploaded on my Articulate Thinker News Clips channel. Someone said in agreement with me, he, as in Joe Biden, also wants to give everyone citizenship, though he may not admit that right now. So how is he trying to solve it if he's encouraging it? Some woke scold said in response to that person, I think you forgot good and well the history of America and the fact it was built on the backs of immigrants. Our ancestors literally took through violence what wasn't theirs to begin with. Never mind we are immigrants. We ourself are immigrants. Apologies, there are a bunch of typos in this person's comment. How dare you, thinking it's okay to prevent people who aren't even using violence from entering our country. Not to mention smooth-brained. Okay, not sure what century you're living in. Who uses the term smooth-brained? I'm not even sure what that means. I guess I'm smooth-brained, right? That's my problem. But yeah, this person says, how dare you? How dare you think it's okay to prevent people who aren't even using violence from entering our country? Alright, so now it's time for my response. I say, so-and-so, whose name I will not repeat. You're making a woke scold level emotional appeal for lack of any coherent political strategy. The thing is, injustices of the past, when our country wasn't yet a country and therefore technically had no borders, don't justify incompetence in the present. I'll reiterate that without the part in parentheses. The thing is, injustices of the past don't justify incompetence in the present. You're essentially suggesting, as a so-called solution, that literally anyone is entitled to enter this country at any time and for any reason whatsoever, so long as they don't punch anyone on the way in. Although your reference to violence is essentially just another subjective shifting of the goalpost of what is or isn't acceptable to you personally. I mean, if your cutoff is some unspecified violent act on account of such behavior being a crime, I'll remind you that it is already a crime to illegally enter this country. And the federal government's failure to enforce the law doesn't change that fact. Keep in mind that you yourself wouldn't even be allowed to illegally enter their countries. Lost my place. And the federal government's failure to enforce the law doesn't change that fact. Already read that, but here we go again. Keep in mind that you yourself wouldn't even be allowed to illegally enter their countries. Or any country for that matter. If you actually believe what you're saying when you complain about the invasions of the past in order to excuse the invasions of the future, or at least of the present, because they are happening right now. It is an invasion. According to one definition or another, it is just that. Well, then just leave your ID, your visa, your passport, etc. at home next time you fly international. Let me read that one more time because I keep losing my place because my comment is up here and my camera's over here. I lose my place every time I look over at the camera. The text is tiny. My eyes are very strained right now. Keep in mind that you yourself wouldn't even be allowed to illegally enter their countries. Or any country for that matter. If you actually believe what you're saying when you complain about the invasions of the past in order to excuse the invasions of the present, then just leave your ID/visa/passport/etc. at home next time you fly international. See how far you get. Better yet, put a "come right on in and make yourself at home, whomever you are" sign on your front door. Since according to your own logic, or lack thereof, random strangers are entitled to live in your home simply because the land you now live on once belonged to someone else. Since you yourself are just an immigrant, right? You see, because we have a country, there's this thing called law and order. And although the current administration can't seem to comprehend that fact, its purpose is precisely to prevent the type of invasions which happened in the past. So that the supposedly non-violent invasion which is currently occurring at our southern border doesn't turn into the violent invasions which are happening on the borders of various other foreign countries as I speak. Yeah. Keep in mind that the Biden administration wants to send money to those countries in order to secure their borders, in a sense. Though, yes, their border crises are a little bit more violent, and we could reach that point if we don't do something about the current crisis. That's what I'm saying. Yes. Next time you lock your door for safety, you as in the person I'm responding to, next time you lock your door for safety and sit in the comfort of your own walls, ironically, consider how important it is that the border of our country be protected. God forbid we wake up one of these days to the shrieking of another 9/11, just wishing that someone had actually secured the border. By the way, when you lump every one of us together as vaguely defined immigrants, therefore justifying all forms of illegal immigration, on whatever ancestral basis, you're watering down your own points. But forget the original European entry into this country for a moment and consider how your equating of American citizens with illegal migrants is insulting not only to us American citizens, but especially to those who migrated into this country legally, without trying to cut in line like an entitled brat at Walmart. While I'm not claiming that every illegal migrant is an entitled brat, I am pointing out that there's a true process and that there's only progress when that process is followed. I misread the end of my comment there, but that works I have reached the end. The end of my show. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. I gotta go, but thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch. Keep in tune. New content is coming soon. A little bit of an abrupt ending there. But that's what I've got. Peace.